everyone. I am Noopur, and today I'm back with another interesting discussion. And I'm excited to have Lalit Mehta with us for this discussion. Hi, Lalit.
Hi, Noopur. Thank you for having me here.
I'm excited for this discussion, Lalit, and let me tell our audiences a bit about you. So, Lalit is a co founder and director of Decimal. He's handling product development, solution architecture, and strategy. He's also worked in diverse functions, including sales, pre-sales, development, delivery, and customer management. And today we will talk about how the financial services industry is getting digitized along with Lalit. So, Lalit, to begin with, the rise of technology has been a game changer over a couple of years, and financial services industries are also touched upon by this innovation. How digitization is transforming this financial industry, according to you?
So, thank you, Noopur, first of all, for the introduction. If you look at digital transforming the financial industry, imagine, just about a few decades back when there was no digital or digital was kind of just starting to happen. Um, the amount of scale that has happened across geographies, that has happened across various sections of society was impossible to think of. It was impossible to uh, make everyone uh, a banked population, if I talk of banking, or make money accessible to everyone through lending. So if you look at the entire pace of economy would not have been what it is today without digital. I know, had digital not transformed the entire financial industry, it would have been impossible to think of speed, think of scale, think of going across geographies. It would have not been possible at all. So just few decades back, we know that all this was not existent, and today it's not only existent, it's moving at a pace which is unprecedented. It's which none of us had ever thought of. So uh, digital along with the entire security that has been implemented, the confidence of people to do all kinds of transactions, whether it's individuals or industries or banks, everybody is very comfortable with all kinds of transactions being digital, whether it's you saving money or investing money or transferring or kind of buying anything. So all of that has become digital, and without digital it would not have been possible. The world would have been very, very different.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I'm sure this journey wasn't easy. In the beginning, there were some challenges. With time, those has been overcome. But what are the challenges you still face in digitizing this industry?
Hmm. Interesting. So I think the challenges are, so it's the first challenge is more speed you deliver, more speed is demanded. That is the first thing. The more you deliver, more it is setting the expectations of the world. So the demand itself for digital is now increasing, uh, which we had not seen earlier in last 1 year. And COVID has added fuel to the fire, kind of a thing. The kind of demand that's being expected by digital industry is uh, unthought of. That is the first challenge that I see. Now we need to be able to deliver things at much faster pace than what we had earlier. That's the first challenge, but quite addressable, and all of us are working towards it. Second challenge, within the finance industry, while this digital adoption has has been there for a couple of years now, people are adopting digital, but new risk areas are opening up. New areas of fraud, new areas of security concerns, new areas of issues of personal information being an issue, being shared with everyone. Those kind of issues were not there earlier. Those challenges are coming up, and those challenges are being addressed. Not that they are unaddressed or anything of that kind, but those challenges are new. Quite a few of them every other day. You encounter new challenges which were not there. So when you implement new ways of working, you also kind of encounter new challenges or new problem areas to be addressed. And I think security is one of them. Security is one of them. Uh, every day, governments are spending, and industry is spending billions of dollars to uh, make sure that digital transactions that are being done or digital adoption that's being done is kind of secure. You don't, because it might have been very difficult to carry $1 billion that you kind of steal from a bank, but transferring $1 billion into multiple accounts is only a click away. So it's kind of the frauds have become much easier. They've become much easier, but I think security folks or security experts have been at it, and they've done a fantastic job. But that's another challenge that I see. And third challenge that I see is that uh, when things happen at a speed, the kind of consistency of things across various initiatives is not always kind of taken care of, because everything needs certain time for adoption and all. So imagine the kind of the payment space. Let's look at payment space. Every company, or like most of the companies, have been developing a lot of standards for their own kind of digital ways. So Samsung Pay, Apple Pay, and, many of those companies have been developing a lot of stuff and following their own standards. So later, you end up you need a consolidation drive later. Once digital practices or applications are well adopted, then you need to start working on consolidation. You can't be having too many of the things kind of out there in the market and kind of creating silos. So the consolidation of these things needs to start happening. So if you look at a lot of initiatives in Indian government, let me talk of initiatives, whether it's kind of doing India Stack and then doing Oaken account aggregator. Now the entire drive to aggregate or consolidate all of these initiatives and investments to deliver for the objectives that we desire is something that needs to be kind of invested in. So that's what I would say are the prime challenges. So speed, uh, security, consolidation of the initiatives, or too many fronts opening up, and then the drive to consolidate all of them is something that, and these challenges are permanent, by the way. None of these is going away. Only thing is that you'll solve one and you'll get another one. So these challenges are going to stay, but which is good for the industry. Without challenges, we couldn't have seen this kind of growth in economy, in our life standards. So which is good.
Yeah, I think challenges are necessary too. And Lalit, when we are talking about digitization, if we don't talk about AI, I think the discussion is incomplete. So my next question to you is how AI is being used to empower the digital lending platforms.
So great. If you look at, let me first, I have a different, uh, there is one intelligence, and then on top of it, we lay artificial intelligence, if you look at it. So I think uh, the biggest thing that AI is doing today, as we are digitizing, the amount of data that we are gathering, the amount of lives and, amount of stakeholders that we are touching in a very small period of time is kind of unseen earlier. Today, you can see billions of transactions happening in a day. Now, the amount of data that we are generating, the amount of information that we are generating was kind of not really thought of earlier. And practically, with the natural intelligence, it's not possible to process that data, amount of data that we gather today. And second, the amount of information which was non-existent and the dimensions of information that were non-existent earlier are available today in digital format. Our behavior analysis, our kind of the way we use applications, like the location, the kind of how we interact with every UI UX, all that information is available today. So AI today is able to process all of that information, learn from that, and then make decisions on our behalf. So if you look at, I'll pick a few areas where AI is going to uh, create huge amount of impact and is going to stay. One is creating personalized or hyper personalized experiences. So AI is being used to create hyper personalized experiences. So the let's imagine you and me both using a same app at the same time, but having a very different experience. You using Amazon app and I using Amazon app, but the interface, the entire experience is very different. All this is possible today through AI. Once AI learns about the user, it can start giving personalized experience. That's one area. Second area of entire decision making. So, whether it's decision making in lending or it's decision making of, what should be the menu options that are shown to you, which is more again on the personalized experience side. So AI is making a great contribution in decision making, especially if on the lending side. I would say AI today is able to kind of do complete analysis of my profile, my credit worthiness, the risk associated with me, and at least assist the credit guys to make a decision. Right now, it may not be making a decision, but at least it's assisting people to make decisions. And for smaller ticket sizes, it's making decisions as well. For larger tickets, it's only assisting. And third area where AI is making a great contribution is entire for fraud prevention. So today, AI is able to identify the risk associated with a transaction in a few seconds, and then take a decision whether this transaction should go through or it shouldn't go through. So imagine, I've experienced it. You're trying to make a transaction in a foreign country, you swipe your card, and then you're trying to do a transaction. And all of a sudden, before you even approve the transaction, you get a phone call through automated system, which kind of seeks your approval. That there is another factor of authentication that kind of gets deployed from the bank. You approve that phone call, and then you approve the transaction on that interface, and then the transaction goes through. So if you look at all that is through AI. AI is kind of it makes it possible, and today's digital ecosystem makes it possible to make it happen that way. So I think I'm going to leave it at these three areas where like hyper personalization, decision making, and fraud prevention. Decision making, I would like to make it more specific. Decision making on lending side is something which where AI is kind of making huge inroads, and it's kind of contributing in a big way. These are three areas where I have experienced AI making kind of great deal of work, and few future areas where we will see AI making contribution is on the design phase. So how we design applications. So AI-led design is something today it may not be as popular, but we'll see AI making contributions in the design of applications itself, which is kind of design itself being automated through artificial intelligence is going to be there, which is kind of AI-led design is going to be a great theme for next couple of years.
Yeah, so a decade before, I think we were not aware of what AI and machine learning could do to the businesses, and not to a specific domain, to all kind of businesses. And what does future holds for us? So, according to you, which are some of the sustainable innovations you see in this industry?
Interesting. So in today's time, it's very difficult to predict sustainability. The way things are changing, the way technologies are changing, the way business models are changing. I think it's very difficult to say what's going to sustain and what's going to be wiped out maybe next year. But one thing which is going to sustain and which I think um, which is most difficult to achieve, and that's why it sustains also, is the change in mindsets. And I would want to come to digital initiatives as well. But first thing, I think uh, if you look at mindsets don't change in months and years, and they change. They take decades and generations to change. So the kind of change that has happened in, let's say, last 5 years is likely to sustain for next 5 or 10 years. The change in the way we have started to adopt digital, the way we have started to visualize the world, I think that is one thing which is going to sustain for some time. I think that's going to sustain for the longest period of time as compared to actual technologies or actual systems or actual business models. Now, coming to kind of on the technology side or digital side, what's going to sustain? I think the concepts, I don't know, if you look at artificial intelligence as a technology itself is going to, and I call that also as a concept, there are the tons of ways of implementing artificial intelligence. Uh, this entire concept of artificial intelligence and virtual world, these two concepts are going to sustain for quite some time. I don't think they're going anywhere anytime soon. This entire concept of virtualization, whether it's meta spaces or it's meta world as we talk of it, the whole, if you look at our comfort with virtual has been seen to be far more profound or far more what do you call accepted than we had seen in the past. And the virtualization is kind of uh, is becoming more ubiquitous or more kind of seen to be there in every area. Whether it's you talk of virtualization of hardwares, you talk of virtualization of processes, you talk of virtualization of spaces, you talk of virtualization of social media. So virtualization and artificial intelligence, these two concepts are going to stay, and they are going to lead to a lot of newer concepts of in the cognitive world. They're going to lead to a lot of newer concepts which we might see combination of uh, artificial intelligence, virtual world on the back of blockchain like concepts is going to stay for quite some time. It's going to stay for, I would say, quite some time. The tools may change, the business models may change, the interfaces may change, but these three concepts, I would say, are likely to stay for a kind of foreseeable future, is what I can say.
All right, Lalit. So, Nana, coming back to the readiness of this industry. So, please share some of your insights on the readiness of BFSI in India to become digital, and what kind of role MSMEs can play in its growth.
Oh, okay, great question. For which the answer may not be too likable by a lot of people. Um, I think while a whole lot of investment has been going on in digital, but I personally don't see, I don't feel quite excited or very excited about the readiness of the industry uh, or the kind of outcome of the investment that has happened in digital space. What I mean by that, some of the areas Indian industry has been fantastic. Um, Whether it's UPI or India Stack or payment space, that has been fantastic. So wherever we have done great innovation in the areas of payments, the areas where the transactions are smaller, where the systems are uh, they're complex from ecosystem standpoint, but they're not complex from the process standpoint. We have done a great job. We have done a great job, and we are ahead of the world. We are ahead of the world. But wherever the processes are complex, wherever the entire transaction, business transaction itself is not too small and not too what do you call short in time period. There, I think we do need to do a whole lot of stuff to really be called as digital natives in those areas. Think of complex lending scenarios. Think of SME lending. I think uh, we are just scratching the surface. I hope that we leapfrog and we become truly digital in those areas. But the areas where the processes are complex or where the processes had involved a lot of people, a lot of people in the past, there I think our ability to digitize or our readiness to adopt digital is still uh, I don't think it's kind of great. We need to really make huge inroads, and those are the areas where the impact is going to be far more uh, in the true sense to the economy. Imagine entire corporate lending, entire SME lending, entire supply chain lending being totally automated or being kind of digital completely. Um, while a lot has been done, but technology is far ahead of our readiness to adopt that technology. I would say if you look at today technology, the concepts which are available, they are far ahead of where we are. Uh, we have kind of too many strides to be made to really catch up with technology. Whether it's composable applications, AI-led designs, or it's kind of virtual spaces or blockchain, all of those technology areas are far ahead uh, of in true concept sense. If you look at uh, AI, blockchain, they're fairly matured. They're fairly matured, but our ability to adopt them in use cases and kind of scale those use cases is still it's quite nascent. I would say it's quite nascent. I would say, and I'm talking of India as a market. But yeah, in some areas we have done fantastic, and those areas which have been empowered and enabled by the government and regulator have where the regulator or the government has pushed for digital, their adoption has been much faster. But I think BFSI industry in itself needs to do a lot more. The entire hyper personalization of experiences or digital lending for SMEs is something which needs to be digitized to a much better state than where it is today. So that's on the state of digital and banking and financial services. How can SMEs contribute to it? I think it's both ways. Banks and financial services will invest in complex processes of digital only if SMEs of India uh, they start adopting that. They start kind of they start becoming more open and transparent about it. If they don't adopt it, then bank does not have incentive to invest in it, or financial services does not have incentive to invest in that. So it's a two-way thing. Uh, SMEs have a great role to kind of contribute. They have a great a role to play. They can contribute in a huge way. The way I'm talking of banking and financial services to start thinking differently, I think SMEs also need to start thinking very differently. They need to be far more open than what they are today in terms of sharing information, in terms of being open about adopting digital methods and digital systems for doing their business and transacting. We are doing good job. I'm not really complaining about what we are doing, but I think uh, the possibility is far larger than what we are doing. Possibility is far larger than what we are doing, and especially in the complex processes. So SMEs have a great role to play, whether it's kind of contributing data to GST or being willing to use platforms like where they can share information about their organization to for banks to make decisions, or integrating with banks uh, to kind of adopt their operational systems which are integrated with financial systems. So concepts like open banks, concepts like using open APIs to kind of transact your business. So SMEs need to show far more willingness, far more readiness to adopt these. And it's more like it's more like an ecosystem play, network effect. Once more SMEs start using it, banks start investing more in that, and it starts reaping benefit. It starts showing benefits to the economy.
Thank you so much, Lalit. It's been wonderful. You've answered a lot of questions around digitization of financial services, and I could, if I am not wrong, we can say that it's just the beginning of it, right? There's a lot we can
Absolutely.
travel in this.
Absolutely. What we have seen changing in 5 years, we should see similar change happening in next 1 to 2 years. So the speed of change is kind of doubling every 2 years. So what could be done in 5 years could be done in 2.5 years, in 2 years time. So it's the speed at which things are changing is phenomenal. It's phenomenal. I think the only thing which worries me there, or not worries me, is kind of which raises a lot of curious questions and some anxiety. uh, Generations, the way the newer generations are going to be far more different than previous generations. So how would it be possible for different multiple generations, and longevity of our lives is kind of extending, so we are going to live more than what our ancestors have lived. So that means we are going to see more number of generations coexisting and co-living. How would they connect, and how would they interact, and what kind of ecosystem would it look like? Because the speed at which change is happening, the newer generations are going to be far, far away from the previous generations. So how would that look like? It'll be very interesting to look at and experience. That imagine, me conversing with my grandfather or grandparents was not as difficult, or the gap between us was only about 20, 30 years, not in the true sense, but in the change sense. Uh, but I think my grandkids are like, they would be kind of 60 years ahead of me in 20 years, or they would be kind of 100 years ahead of me in 20 years. Then how would the conversation happen, and how would we connect? It's something that'll be interesting to see.
Absolutely, absolutely. So with that, Lalit, we come to the end of our first round and moving on to our next round. That's going to be a rapid fire. Okay, so who is your favorite author?
So it keeps changing. Recently, I was reading Curious Mind, and Brian Grazer sounded very interesting. And I would say for the moment, he's the favorite. He's the favorite, and keeps changing. It keeps changing. Every other book I read, every few books I end up changing my favorite author. But right now, that's the one. Yeah.
A quote that you recently read and you are going to remember for life.
I read it yesterday, and that's recency effect, and I'm gonna remember it for my own good. Uh, the leaders don't really do a lot of. They don't lead by commanding things. They lead by asking right questions through curiosity. So I'm gonna kind of internalize that, and I'm gonna practice that a lot.
All right. So, Lalit, what is the biggest challenge you have faced in your journey so far?
Changing yourself and managing yourself. I think it's very easy to kind of manage technology or systems and all. The most difficult thing is to change yourself.
And what do you see the financial industry going? Where do you see it going in 5 years down the line? You can, if you can describe in 3 words or something.
It's going to be an open financial industry. It's going to be an uh, open world where there'll be no limitations of uh, two sides of transaction, demand and supply. Any demand can connect with any supply. Any let's say money transfer from any bank to any consumer to any bank, it's going to be happening, and all of that is going to be happening on a few platforms. It's going to be absolutely open world with no silos, with no boundaries. Is what I see happening in the next 5 years.
Okay, and here comes the last question. How do you describe Lalit Mehta in 3 words?
Curious, energetic, and somebody who wants to do good.
Thank you, Lalit. Thank for being so quick and thank you for answering the surprise questions for you. And now moving on to the conclusion of the whole discussion we are doing today about the digitization, about the BFSI financial industry, and money landing platforms. So, what is your tip to budding professionals, entrepreneurs, and BFSI professionals?
So it'll be a tip. Not really a tip. I'm nobody to kind of give a tip, but I'll share my experience and the way I would want to conduct myself in next couple of years. Probably that's where I would advise to others as well. Uh, I think the first thing, if you want to make a change, that change needs to happen in your mind. When we're talking of digital, what I see is that entire BFSI industry is trying to change the processes, the systems, but the change has not happened in the mind. So it's when you have not changed your mind and you're only trying to change the external world, it's very difficult to make a sustainable change or impactful change. So my first advice would be to check if the change has happened in your own mind. If it's digital, if it's kind of adopting any technology, just that's the first one. And second, I think uh, change is happening for sure. This open finance that I spoke about is happening for sure. Uh, Whether you adopt it or you don't adopt it, it's happening. If you don't adopt it, you are the one who's going to be left behind. The world is going to move on. Nobody is going to wait for even the largest of the players. Even the largest of the players are going to be left behind if they don't change. So I think embracing change and conquering the complexities related to that change is the way forward, rather than uh, thinking that change is a little behind or change it's you have time to change, and you can board the train at next station. That's not going to happen. You got to board the train now. I think I would leave it at that.
Thank you, Lalit. That's a great advice. And I'm sure a lot of people are going to get benefited by that. Thank you
I
so
hope
much.
so.
It was wonderful having you, and I didn't realize how we have come to the end of this discussion. And thank you once again.
No, thank you, Rupert. It was great being here and great talking to you. Thank you so much.